Hello guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls. It's me, Big Mike, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Coffee with Big Mike, the series where I sit down for a chat with some rather interesting and amazing people over a nice cup of coffee. Joining me today is Trent, a member of Trent Patterson Studios Gaming, the developer team behind Thrack The Fox, a beautiful PlayStation 1 style game. Welcome, Trent. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Nice to meet you. How's your day going?
So far so good. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. I've been seeing a lot about this game from one of your fellow team members over the past couple of months. And so it's finally nice to have you in here to talk about this amazing game.
Thank you for having me.
I have an audience member, I have a fan who always likes me to ask this question when we first start. Because, the name of our show is Coffee with Big Mike. And as such, I'm drinking coffee. But I want to know, are you drinking anything right now? And if so, what are you drinking?
Just water. Some nice ice cold water.
Given your location and the weather this time of the year, I don't blame you at all. Can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Trent Patterson. I'm from Reno, Nevada. And I started a TPSG when I was I think around 14 years old, and have been kind of developing games for many years. I'm not that great at it, but it's better than nothing. And as of a few years ago, I started hiring developers to help me with games, and it's been kind of smooth sailing ever since.
One of the things I like to do on my show when I talk to a game developer is before we start talking about their work as a game developer, I like to try to get to know them as a gamer. Because, game developers are first and foremost gamers themselves.
Yes, sir. I really like a lot of I really like playing a lot of retro games and stuff. One of my favorite games is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Oh. I also really like the video game Age of Empires 2. Those are two of my favorite games of all time. I have a pretty massive collection of video games, mostly retro games, but I do play some modern games as well. But I think platformers are my favorite genre of games.
I am mostly a retro gamer myself, and I was so happy. My face lit up like a Christmas tree when you mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog 2. The classic Sonic series, the mainline Genesis games or the Mega Drive games are my favorite games of all time. Sonic 3 and Knuckles being my favorite. I'm a huge fan of the series, and retro games, I would say, make up the bulk of my gaming diet, and indie games make up the remaining bulk, I would say. So I was really, really happy to hear you say that. Awesome. I could definitely see that love of retro games and Thrax. Can I ask, what was your first game?
First game that I ever played. Let's see. I think it was a Cars video game for the Nintendo DS. But one of my first games I really got into was Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga for the PlayStation 3.
I will say the Lego games are something special. I have a lot of friends who are into those games, and I've never personally played them myself, but having watched a lot of gameplay from those games, they do seem, I can definitely appreciate the appeal.
I mean, I still play them to this day, so this is something about them, right?
And I just kind of want to ask you one more question about your gaming before we jump into your game dev work. Was there a game that inspired you to get into game dev?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe. The big thing that inspired me to get into game dev was getting recommended videos online about it, and it kind of inspired me. And then I started thinking how cool when diving into history of other video games, like the history of Sonic the Hedgehog, or something like the history of Atari, old school games and stuff like that, seeing how they kind of developed over time, seeing all the changes that happen with when things got passed down from developer to developer, as well as some of the rivalries that happened back in the day and stuff.
There's an amazing website. Are you familiar with the Cutting Room Floor?
I'm not.
It's a website dedicated to preserving cut content from games. And Sonic has a lot of that stuff. And what's really cool is I'm really, well, just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm really big into the Sonic fan game community, the Sonic hacking or modding community. And quite often you'll see projects that will attempt to take these games and try to present them as they originally were, using screenshots from old magazines or footage from old presentations at gaming conventions and such, to try to recreate this experience as much as possible. And it's also really interesting looking under the hood as how some of these old games work, how they function and such. It's something I'm very much interested in myself, I would say. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but one of your teammates mentioned modding Thrack, and that actually kind of had me pretty excited. But I don't want to jump too far ahead of myself. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later on in the conversation. I just want to tell my audience. I usually do a lot of work with solo devs. I have had some game developers on in the past, but mostly it's just solo devs I have here on the show. So I want to ask a bit about your studio. Can you tell us how Trent Patterson Studio Gaming came to be?
Yes. It started in 2014 when I saw some videos, and I got kind of really into a little bit of game development, and I decided to create a website called Trent Patterson Studio Gaming, or TPSG for short. And I was just posting screenshots of some of the games I was working on, and was just like really excited to just push updates on and stuff like that. I thought it was like really cool. And then for a couple years, I kind of just stopped doing game development for it. I kind of stopped updating the website. But then I got recommended some other video, and I got really excited to get back into game development. And then I've been kind of doing it ever since. I really like doing 2D platformers and stuff like that. That was kind of one of the big games I was developing, and still am developing, as well as some other games that some of my friends decided to wanted to make games as well. So there's a lot of projects I have on the horizon for TPSG.
Now I just kind of want to turn our attention to the reason we're all here today, and that is Thrack the Fox. So can you tell me what inspired Thrack the Fox?
Well, it's an interesting story. Currently, one of the biggest things that is helping inspire Thrack the Fox in its current status is probably something like Spyro the Dragon or Crash Bandicoot. Though the original development of the game was a very different concept than it is currently.
And now, Thrack the Fox is a narrative game, or it's a narrative. It's like it has a narrative to it, right? I don't really want you to spoil the game too much, but could you tell us a bit about the story?
Yes. Thrack is kind of a bit of a kind of I want to say how do I describe him? He's a little bit rude at times, I would say. Though he's also very much of a character that he wants the treasure. I'll say that. One of the things that the game starts out with is Thrack needing to find this treasure. And that ends up leading to a whole series of some pretty crazy events where you get to meet some strange characters and stuff like that. So, just Thrack really likes to mess with people, I'd say, but is also very curious about things.
It sounds like your team took a lot of inspiration, not just in regards to aesthetics, but also the spirit of those mid-90s platformers. Those mascot platformers were full of attitude, starting with Sonic the Hedgehog, Crash Bandicoot, of course, and numerous others. So it seems like it's going to be a great spiritual successor to that era of gaming. As you mentioned, this game is going to be full of colorful characters. So I want to ask, besides Thrack, who do you think is your favorite character?
Let's see. There's a lot of characters to choose from. I think, let's see. And not all the characters have their names quite yet, but there is this giraffe character that's pretty interesting, along with this gator character. And there's still a lot to the story that still has to be developed. That, from what I could see of what's been developed so far, they sound very exciting characters, in my personal opinion.
What has the development process been like for Thrack?
Okay, so in the beginning of the Thrack development process, it started out as like a more of a puzzle game than a story-based game. It was starting out in the Unity engine, and it was kind of I wasn't too sure what to do with the game, and that was for about 5 years or so. And then I started getting some more in-depth concept of me wanting to make it more of a 1990s style game, similar to something like Crash or Spyro the Dragon, and and the character was originally supposed to be a human character over at an anthropomorphic fox, but a few years went by, still didn't do much with the game, and then I ended up hiring Brad of Godaway Games, and he really pushed the project a lot further than I did during my development time with the game in the early days of it, and he really liked the idea of the game, and I let him do a lot of creative decisions on the game to help keep the game really fresh. So currently the game is getting close to done, but there's still a bit of ways to go. A bit of ways to go. The basic level layouts are currently done, but there's still a lot of polish to do, as well as some more of the story writing to get done. Because one of the first things that needs to happen is the game needs to be fun to play. So,
Do you guys plan on releasing a demo first?
I think so. I know there is. I played the demo, a kind of a somewhat demo. This was to test out some of the modding API features, and it still has some work to go. But I think we'll probably release a demo maybe by Christmas. But that's all dependent on how close we are done with the beginning few stages.
And I think this is probably a great time to ask this. Now, in one of the previous interviews, a member of your team, I think it was Fred, he was talking about including a feature that would allow modding in the game, that would make modding in the game easier. You know, I'm a huge fan of modding. And so this feature, really, really struck a chord with me, because it's not every day that you see something like this, that you see game developers go out of their way to make this so easy. And so I want to ask, in that interview, he was unsure if it was going to work out or not. Since then, has any progress been made, and was your team able to implement this feature?
I think it might. It's right now very basic from some of the testing that's been done with it, and the long-term idea is to hopefully have a little section in the game where you could download mods or upload mods just straight through the game. But last I saw is we were able to export a file as well as import a file into the game using some in-game commands. Though some of the modding features, there's not a lot in the modding features yet, but there are some more plans to add a bit more. Currently, in the modding API, I know you're able to remove objects from the game or add or move objects to different positions through the API. That's kind of the current state of it.
And I think that's really cool, because I'm, as I mentioned before, it's something I really, really love. And it's not just because of my love of modding that I'm excited about this, but I'm really excited because as a philosophy, I think it adds a lot of replay value to games. Being able to easily mod it, to have new adventures, take your old familiar characters, new adventures, do different things. Maybe put a new spin on the classic game. And so I think that's great. Absolutely. And I wish more devs did that, actually.
I have to agree with you. I do wish more developers did do that. I know there's a couple games out there that do have a pretty easy modding API, as well as some other games at least having using this Steam being able to add cool mods through their the Steam Workshop. So
far, what do you think has been the biggest challenge you've had to face in developing Thrack the Fox?
I would say the biggest problem, I'd say the resources. I I'm not like the richest developer out there, and I'm kind of stuck on the budget of my personal job to fund the development of this game. So it's just kind of that's just been the biggest hurdle to causing development to be very slow.
Now, a lot of indie developers, they tend to go the Kickstarter route, the crowdfunding route. Is that something you would consider, or is that something you try to want to avoid, or you would like to try to avoid?
The idea's been tossed around here and there, but currently I think there's plans to see how one of our next upcoming games they'll be releasing before Thrack does, and from there see if that could help improve funding for Thrack the Fox.
I am sure you're very well aware of this, probably way more than I am. But game development or developing a game is a very long journey, filled with lots of trial and error. Some would say it's an endurance test. So I want to ask, in your developing of Thrack the Fox, what do you think you and your team has learned?
Let me think. I'd say one of the biggest things is that probably would have been a good idea to have made sure that we had a bit more resources before really fully beginning development for the game.
I think that's a very good insight. I think that's a very good insight to have. And lastly, I would say the last specific question I have for you today is, what does the future hold for Trent Patterson Studios Gaming?
I'm not too sure. I do know there are, let me think, probably maybe at least 5 planned releases at the moment. A couple 2D platformers, as well as a 3D platformer, a puzzle game, as well as an arcade style game, which are all in the pipeline alongside Thrack, as well as some updates to currently existing games such as Ultimate Tank Combat or Max Cybergear.
Now, do any of your games that are currently in progress, do they have any demos available?
Let me think. I think for the next update of Ultimate Tank Combat, there will be a demo coming probably within the next couple months. And there's a game that we haven't announced yet, but if all goes well, it should be releasing possibly in October with a demo version available.
It definitely sounds.
So
sounds
yeah,
like
I think that
you have a lot going on. It definitely sounds like you have a lot going on. Juggling many different projects at one time, I would say. I very much look forward to checking out those 2D platformers. Like 2D platformers are probably my favorite genre of games. I would love to check those out whenever the time comes for those to release. I'm a huge fan. Huge fan.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear you like 2D platformers. Do you happen to have a favorite 2D platformer?
Sonic Fury and Knuckles. Hands down, Sonic Fury and Knuckles would be my favorite. Now, probably, in regards to indie games, just focus on indies. That would be a bit more of a difficult situation. Like I forget the dude's name, but there are 2 really cool games he made. He made them in like a Sega Master System style, and one is called Kid Bubblegum, and the other one's called Go Go Pogo Girl. Both of those are amazing games. Amazing platformers.
Definitely have to check this out. That sounds awesome. I'm gonna have to check those out at some point.
And there's actually a 3D platform I really love too. It was one of the first games I ever covered here on my channel. It's called Gravity Runner, and it's a 3D platformer, but in many ways, it plays like a 2D platformer. It was actually inspired by the gaming philosophy of Mario, the original Super Mario Bros. You go a certain direction, you just hit jump. I do enjoy platformers quite a lot, and 3D platformers have grown on me quite a lot over the past maybe 10 years. I didn't play as many platformers on the 3D consoles as I have on 2D consoles. I was kind of late to the 3D console game. In that era, and I would say the PlayStation N64 era, I had an N64, and I don't know what happened with me, man, but like But like the first like 6 months of my playing on the console, I couldn't play like no more than 15 minutes because I would get like horrible motion sickness. And then one day it went away. So that kind of early experience kind of led me away from platforming in 3D for a long time. It wasn't until my university years that I actually would try to pick it up again. Huge fan of platformers, man. Really, really huge fan.
That's awesome.
And now I want to turn the mic over to you now that we're at the end. And I want to ask if you have any questions for me.
What made you decide to get into podcasting?
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but I'll give you the condensed version. So there's this annual gaming expo online that it's my favorite time of the year. It's my favorite event of the year. It's called SAGE, Sonic Amateur Game Expo. And every year I would go there. Well, I would participate in it, I would say. And back in 2021, I made a lot of good connections in the community. And there's a one big misconception about that event. And that misconception is that, it's just for Sonic or it's just for fan games. But there are actually a lot of indie games at that event. And perhaps in some years, there's actually been more indie games than fan games. And so I was able to connect with a lot of developers. And I will say indie developers are some of the nicest people you will ever meet in your life, man. Like, they're some of the most welcoming people. And I made a lot of friends quite easy. And I was like, wait a minute, I could do something with this. And then I was also making connections with a lot of other content creators, VTubers, and such. And so, my connections and my level of conversation, I could do something with this. And so I kind of put two and two together, and I'm already YouTubing. So why don't I do a series of Coffee with Big Mike? And I called it Coffee with Big Mike because of my love of coffee. My world revolves around coffee. So that's kind of how I got into it. And my scope has broadened out a bit. Over the past few years, in addition to talking to content creators and game developers, I also talked to authors. I had an actress on here one time. I actually talked to nutritionist experts, filmmakers. Pretty much anybody who wants to come on, I pretty much let on. But I tend to really prefer indie creators. I have a background in indie film, and so it's something I'm very passionate about. I love helping indie developers, indie creators, because indies, I feel like in whatever art form they exist in, the indie form of that art is the purest. You make it, if you're an indie game developer, the game that you make, you're oftentimes more than not, you're making it just for the love of gaming. Sometimes people do make money. People do make money off of indie games. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. The game isn't built around, is this going to make me money, or is this going to make me a profit? But it's built mostly because, hey, this is my vision. I want to share it with the world. And the same is true with indie filmmaking, indie music. And so I try to support that as much as I can.
That's awesome. That's real awesome. And I heard that you also said you have a passion. You said you enjoyed filmmaking too?
I worked on some student films when I was in university. I haven't really done anything in regards to, outside of YouTube, I haven't really done anything in regards to filmmaking since my university years. Because, working in low and no budget film, it's very, very difficult. And university is a great time to do that because you have so many free things at your disposal. You have a setting, for example, a college campus. You have many people who are willing to participate in your film for free and, just for the experience. And so there's a lot of things you can take advantage of. And one of the things I learned about filmmaking is that when you're working with low or no budget projects, you're going to craft your story around whatever you have at your disposal, freely at your disposal. And having those things at my disposal gave me a lot more better ability to write great stories and bring them to life. After university, before I relocated, life was really a huge struggle for me just to kind of keep my head above the water. So I kind of had to step away from filmmaking in most creative endeavors for about 3 or 4 years. And but YouTube has given me an outlet for that, and so I'm hoping in the future when I'm able to upgrade my production equipment I can bring some of that back to YouTube that I used to have.
Cool. Potentially bringing that kind of stuff to YouTube again. What was your favorite kind of like film genre or style to make when you were into that? Or if you were to ever bring it back, do that again in YouTube, what kind of film style would you go for?
So I will say this. I will say, looking back on my previous work, it's probably a bit dated now because this was in the mid 2000s. I would say from 2006 to 2010. And so, at that time, me and a lot of my friends, we were huge fans of The Office. And they were done in like a mockumentary style. I wanted to, for a lot of my films, I wanted to have like the storytelling of like Clerks, the black and white Kevin Smith film. And because I'm a huge fan of his work, okay. I'm a huge fan of his writing, but I wanted to combine that with like the storytelling or the type of story of a mockumentary like The Office or Parks and Rec. And so I kind of did that. But coming back, if I was to come back to YouTube, or bring filmmaking or do filmmaking on YouTube, I definitely would probably not be able to do that now just because of where I'm at. Because I live in a place where English isn't the first language, it might be a bit challenging to do that because when it comes to translating stuff, when it comes to translating media, comedy is the hardest thing to translate. Because
that is true. Have you ever thought of like silent films?
Actually, I have not. But I never thought about that. I do like silent films. I'm a huge fan of public domain stuff. But I've never actually thought of making one. That is actually a fantastic idea. But no, I've actually never thought about that. Also, I would like to try my hand at documentary filmmaking again. I tried to shoot a documentary film when I was in university, but it completely fell apart. It just completely kind of fell apart. When I was in high school, the art class I was in was filled with many unique characters, many eccentric people, all kind of doing their own thing. Sometimes butting heads with each other, and my art teacher at the time, she was like a mother to me, and so I was like, you know what? I think your classes would make a really, really good subject for a documentary film. So I went around talking to all my other teachers, getting permission to have to, to stay out of their class for a day so I could spend a whole day in her class shooting film. And so I got me a professional camera and I sat in the corner, and for an entire day, I recorded, and wouldn't you know it, the one day I decided to do this, everybody's completely normal. No, no drama, no, not too much eccentricity. And I forgot to take into consideration, or I did not take into consideration because I was about 16 at the time, how the camera changes people. People act differently when they know there's a camera in front of them. And yeah, that kind of really kind of soured my work on documentaries. But I guess if I was to ever make another documentary, I think it probably would be about something not involving human nature, like I would say, or not having a human subject, or at least not a living
animals
subject.
Or something like that?
Like animals, or maybe somebody in the past, or maybe an event in the past, or maybe like a broad concept. Like some of my favorite documentary films, for example, I know it gets a lot of crap now online, but have you ever heard or have you ever seen Super Size Me?
I haven't personally seen it, but I do know what it's about. I had family members actually watch that, and I heard it was a pretty good movie explaining the effects of eating fast food.
It was a fun movie. I mean, it was a hard hitting movie, but it was also a fun movie too. Like the dude, he ate nothing but McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for almost a month, and to show its health problems. But he also did other things, like he interviewed people, like he talked to this one guy. He eats at least one Big Mac every day, and he's been doing this since the 1970s. And he did other things like talk to health experts, and he did experiments as well. By the end, his health was really, really horrible. But it wasn't so dry. It was fun. The dude, he didn't mind, playing around a bit. Like, dude goes to a McDonald's. After he eats, he goes to play on the playground, for example. So
Yeah.
it was fun, but it was like a broad subject. It's about a broad subject. And, you know, like the health issues caused by fast food. And, you know, so if I was to do something, it would probably be something like that. It's like a broad subject, or like last year, actually, I did a video on link rot. Are you familiar with the concept of link rot?
I am not.
So link rot is how, you know, when you link something online, let's say, for example, I write like a paper or a Wikipedia article, for example. And so I link my sources. And, you know, the link works great now, but maybe 5 years, those links don't work anymore. That's link rot.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, I'm aware of that.
that's just a broad concept that probably would make a good documentary, because I didn't realize this at the time, but going into that video, we have so much that is built on the old internet. You know,
Absolutely.
Like a lot of Wikipedia articles use links that no longer work, and you're like, okay, that's just Wikipedia. I mean, it's a cool resource, but you know, that's that. But there's a lot of Supreme Court cases that use links in their decision, and a lot of these links no longer work. And when you're talking about something as monumental as a Supreme Court case, you know, that really has a huge impact on how the United States operates and the course it takes. It's, you know, it's almost like building a house on sand. So, but not to get too far off track, I think something like that would make a great documentary film.
Yeah, most definitely. That sounds really cool. What's some other stuff you like to do outside of your podcast, or I guess outside game or film making and stuff?
Well, I love to travel. I love traveling. You know, I love going to new places, trying new foods, meeting new people. I've traveled to 5 states in the United States. I've been to, you know, Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, and New York. And I've been to probably 95 out of 100 counties in North Carolina. And I've been to Hong Kong, and I've been to Indonesia. So I haven't traveled as much as I'd like, but I like to think I've been to some amazing places, met some amazing people. So yeah, that's pretty much that. I love reading too. I love reading as well. I tend to keep my nose in the books, not necessarily all the time. Like, I tend to go through phases. Like right now, I tend to do a lot of gaming right now. So usually during the summer months, up until I would say maybe October, November, I tend to do a lot of gaming. It usually peaks with Sage in September. And then I'll usually have another big event in October called Sonic Hacking Contest, which tends to focus on Sonic mods. And then November, there's a new expo called there's a new expo for Sonic games and also indie games too, hosted by the Hedgehog Technical Institute. And so they have 2 events, one focused on fan games and one focused on indie games. And so, but usually after that, I usually kind of wind down my gaming until about maybe April or May, because I'm also a teacher in real life, and so that time tends to sync up with my busy time at work. So I usually have to cut my gaming back a great deal. And so when I get home from work, it's usually like, you know, I love gaming, but sometimes, you know, when you're really tired, you don't even feel like playing games. And so
Yeah.
I like get me a nice book and read, and and sometimes write too. Sometimes write as well. But yeah, that's about it. That's about it for me. Besides game development and gaming, do you have any other hobbies?
I actually do. I also like to make cartoons, like classic style cartoons, animation stuff. I find that pretty fun. And I also like messing with Lego sets as well, building stuff. I just really like making things.
I don't want us to run out of time because I want to give you a proper goodbye and stuff. Before we go, do you have anything you would like to say to the audience?
I would say if you want any updates on Thrack the Fox or any other games done by TPSG, follow the Trent Patterson Studio Gaming social media accounts at TPSG Official. And if you want specifically Thrack The Fox updates, go ahead and follow Fred's account at Godaway Games on X. If you are interested in some of my cartoons and stuff like that, feel free to check out the YouTube channel on it's at Studio Vlogs. That's where you can check out some of my cartoons. And also feel free to what's your YouTube handle?
My YouTube handle is What's Up Big Mike. What's Up Big Mike?
Go ahead and subscribe to What's Up Big Mike to see some more of these awesome podcasts and interviews with some other real great developers and stuff like that.
And so, yeah, be sure to shoot me those links. I'll be happy to put them down and, in the description below. All right. Thank you so much, Trent, for all of your support and for joining us today. All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls, thank you so much for joining us as well. Be sure to wishlist Thrack The Fox on Steam. Wishlisting games is a great way to support indie developers. And if you really like my channel and you would like to support my content, please consider donating to my Ko-fi. For the time being, anything I receive via Ko-fi will go towards building my dream PC and towards becoming a VTuber. Also, special thanks to Fran, who does a wonderful job of doing my art. A special thanks to all of my friends on Twitter. I wouldn't be here without you all. And also, most importantly, a special thank you to all of you for watching. Please like this video if you liked it. Dislike it if you dislike it. Feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. And if you like my content, please subscribe and turn your notifications on. Until next time, fam, remember, just be yourself and you'll be awesome. Peace out!